welcome to Busy Garden Life. Check out all of this corn that I have. Right here I have 5 dozen ears of corn. In Michigan, we have the best sweet corn, and so I like to preserve it as much as I can so that we can have that nice sweet flavor throughout the year. And today I'm going to show you 3 different ways that I am going to preserve it. We're going to freeze it. And it's not going to be your ordinary way of freezing it. It's going to be something that is going to change your life in freezing sweet corn because it is so easy, you just have no idea. And then we're going to can it. I'm going to can it because we like to use canned corn on our nachos. I like to throw a canned corn in beef stew or chicken pot pie. So for me, I like to have cans of sweet corn in the pantry for things like that. And then I'm going to do a couple cans of cream style corn. Now, really the only reason why I do the cream style corn is because at Thanksgiving we make a corn casserole, and that corn casserole calls for cream style corn. So for me, I like to have that nice fresh sweet corn to make the corn casserole. So we're going to do it 3 different ways. I'm going to start first by showing you my easy freezing method. Now, a lot of times people will blanch, they'll husk it, they'll blanch the corn, they'll throw it in a freezer bag, or they'll blanch it, chop it off the cob, throw it in the freezer bag. And those are all fine methods, but I am going to just trim a little bit of the husk. We are going to throw it in my food saver bags. We're going to seal it, and we're going to pop it in the freezer. Yes, it is that easy. It preserves the flavor. When you pull it out of the freezer, then you do still have to husk it and everything like you normally would, but then you would boil it like normal, and you just get the flavor of the corn that lasts. You're not taking any of that flavor or even some of the nutrients out that you do when you start blanching it. A lot of those nutrients are a little bit more saved when you're freezing it. Not 100%, but it's still there. So anyway, let me show you first that part because it's so easy. And then I'm going to gather all my kids up and we're going to start husking the rest of the corn so I can show you how we're canning it. We're going to do the raw pack method today. I love raw pack method. It saves a step of having to warm everything up for 1, and for 2, it doesn't allow your veggies to get as mushy when you do it that way as well. So let's head on over to the other counter and start freezing. Okay, so I have my food saver over here. So I'm only doing 1 at a time in these little quart bags. Reason being, usually I do it in the long rolls where you can cut them, and I'll shove like 6. We have 6 people in our family, so I'll do 6 at a time in 1 bag and seal it up and put it in the freezer. But I don't have the roll. My husband used it when last time he went walleye fishing to freeze that. So at this point in time, all I have are these quart bags, which only fit 1 corn. But since we don't seem to use these very often, we actually have a couple packs. I might as well go ahead and use them up. So I'm only going to do 12 of them right now, which is 2 meals, and then see where I get with my canned corn and creamed corn because I want to make sure I have enough of that for the year. So all I'm doing, I try to get the ones with not as big of a stem down here. You could cut it off a little bit, but I like to just try and find the ones that are already done. And then some of this stuff on the top so you don't have it flailing all over, and just kind of cutting off a little bit of that top, but you still want to make sure you have the majority of all of that in there. And then you're just going to throw it in the bag. Kind of tuck that husk in there. Put it in your food saver. Lock it up and hopefully it seals. There we go. Okay. And there you have it. A nice sealed fresh ear of corn. Super easy, and all I have to do is throw them in the freezer. It's so fast. So as I'm sealing one, I can get the other one prepped and ready to go. It's quick, it's easy, and you're not wavering on that taste when you get it out. Now, I'm gonna tell you a little trick on how to cook your corn too. It is so good if you do this. I like to boil my corn. I've done it on the grill, you know, that can be good too, but if you fill your pot with water, you know, cover the corn with water and then add 1 cup of milk and 1 stick of salted butter, it is so good. Bring it to a boil and then just let it sit for 5 minutes. If you can stick a fork in it and pull it out, we call it fork tender, then you know it's done and it is delicious. The person that I actually bought the corn from, she told me about that method, and after I tried it, I will not go back any other way of cooking my corn. It was so good. You didn't need any butter, you didn't need any salt. Though salt kind of gives you a little bit of that sweet and salty, so if you like that, it's great, but the flavor of the corn was just so good and it was so tender. Take them out of this bag, husk them, throw them in that pot with the milk and butter, and you will have fantastic corn every time. All right, so I'm just gonna work on doing these right now. Like I said, I'm gonna do a dozen to start with. That's 2 meals for us, and then after that, if I have any left over from canning and doing the cream style corn, then I'll just go ahead and freeze those as well. Or I might just head back to the farm stand and buy more. I get the day-old corn. It's cheaper, and there's no change in the taste, right? It's just a day-old. The only difference is you have the husk looking a little bit more brown. The corn has not changed at all. So a good way to save money is to get that day-old corn as well. All right, so I'm gonna finish this up, and then I'll take you to the canning process. Okay, so we are outside ready to start the canning part of the corn. So I have all the kids out here helping. Teamwork makes the dream work, right guys?
Yeah. Yes!
So while they're out husking, I'm actually gonna take the corn inside and I'm gonna start cutting it off of the cob. Just to kind of get things moving along. I'm gonna have to probably do a couple batches in the pressure canner because I ordered another rack, but it hasn't come in yet. So I'm gonna have to do a couple batches.
Okay.
So to kind of help that along, I'm gonna have to do a batch now and then a batch later. But the thing that I like about this method that I'm using, it's the raw pack method.
Can I have a corn, please?
Everything is cold to start with. Now, I know some people are going to bark back about everything start being cold, but when you're pressure canning, you don't have to have everything hot. Now, it's ideal because everything kind of starts warming up right away. Oh, yeah? Everything kind of starts warming up right away, and it's quicker, right? But with this method, because I have no idea how much corn, yep, go ahead and put it in here. How much corn I need. I am actually, my jars are washed, but I'm not warming them up ahead of time. I'm just gonna keep them cool. I'm gonna put the cool corn in there. Once the corn's packed in there, I'm gonna add some water, and then we're gonna put it in the pressure canner cold. The pressure canner is not going, that's okay, I'll cut it off. The pressure canner is gonna be cold. So with that, we just have to warm it up at a slow rate. You don't wanna quickly try to get it all hot into temperature. You're just gonna start warming it up slow, and then you can increase it as you go. And then once you get to that point, then you wait till it gets to the 10 pounds of pressure, then you start your timer. We do have to can it for 55 minutes, but The reason why I'm doing that is it's just easier right now. Is this process is so tedious and takes a while. Instead of making sure everything's hot and ready to go all at once, I don't mind just kind of putting them into the clean jars, getting them ready, and that way I can just set it in the pressure canner. And then I'm going to let the whole batch cool down before I go ahead and do the next batch. So it's a little bit time consuming when it comes to that, but ultimately it is a little bit easier because you're not racing the time of keeping everything warm. And then the corn it's not as mushy when you go to use it because we're not cooking it ahead of time. So I tend to like this method a little bit better. All right, so while the kids, it's okay. I'm just cutting it off. You can go ahead and put it in there. No. Well, I guess you could eat it raw. It probably tastes really good. Yep, put it right in there.
Is it even good when it's raw?
Sure. Nice fresh corn. So I'm going to go ahead. The kids are going to finish husking the rest of this. I'm going to take this batch inside. You guys are going to put the corn in the other pot here. Oh, wait. Let's pick that up and clean it. And then I'm going to start taking these off of the kernel inside for our canned corn.
Yeah.
All right, so I have my full setup. Got corn, I've got my jars washed and ready to go. And like I said, they're cold. They're not warm because my pressure canner is cold. And as long as I'm heating everything up at a slow pace, we will be fine. This also kind of allows me, I only have room for 9 jars in my pressure canner, so I can do 9 of them, and then I can wait and do the rest later while the batch is going. So I'm just going to start cutting the kernels off the cob. It does make a nice mess. However, if you haven't used your bundt pan to cut kernels off the cob, then I highly recommend it. I also have this fancy kernel cutter. You can just use a regular knife. You want to get all the way down to that cob, get up full kernels in there. Some of them will spray, so just grab those. And I'm gonna just kind of fill the bundt pan a little bit. I want to see about how many ears of corn for each pint jar too. Recipes always call for like pounds of corn and this and that, and I always struggle with that because I don't have a scale. I probably should get one. I don't have one. But with that being said, I like to just try to figure out how many are in each. And you want it packed pretty good. I've done 3 ears of corn. And we're just going to pack this with water, right? So it's a low acid food. We're pressure canning it, so it's not like we need vinegar or anything like that. We want about 1 inch of head space, so I still have, so that's packed down there pretty good. There we go. So that, and we still have some kernels left. So a little bit less than 3 ears of corn per pint jar. So perfect, that'll be great. We'll have plenty of corn. All right, so I'm just gonna work on filling all of these jars. You can see there, fill all of them. And then we're going to put water on top, put our lids in bands on there, put them in the pressure canner, and like I said, slowly bring it up to pressure and get them canned. All right, so we have our 9 pint jars here full and corn everywhere. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill it with water. We're going to wipe off the rims like we normally do. Hello. Say hi, Matthew. Okay. I'm going to fill them with water so there's a 1-inch headspace. We're going to wipe the rims off, put the lids on and the bands, and put them in the pressure canner, and then we'll take the pressure canner over to the stove. All right? So let me get a measuring cup of water. And I just used regular water. Not hot, not cold, just regular. And gotta find my debubbler. There it is. So we just want to debubble everything like we normally would. Okay, so I ended up taking a little bit out of each jar. Once I got that water in there, it really kind of bubbled up or filled the jars. So lesson learned, you don't have to fill it as high before you add the water because there's no liquid in it. You got to add that liquid. So I'm just going to kind of wipe off the jars and then get our bands, our lids, and get them cooking. All right, so we're just gonna put the lids on and the bands, fingertip tight. Ooh, what was that? What was that? And it's gonna take a while. It's probably gonna take an hour and a half, my guess, because you have to process it for 55 minutes. We're slowly gonna have to bring it up to temperature and pressure so that the jars don't crack. That one's giving me fits. What's going on here? Okay, so we have 2 inches of water in our pressure canner. It is the same temperature of the water that I used to fill the jars. So we're just gonna pop them all in here. Well, only 8 are fitting in here, so we'll have the next one for the next batch. Let's take it over to the stove and slowly get it ready. All right, so let's get this on here. No, you're not. We're gonna get this on and we're just gonna bring it we're gonna start it kind of low. We don't wanna turn it up hot real quickly. We're just gonna turn it low, kind of let the temperature start rising, and then we'll just, no, you can't. And we're gonna start to increase the temperature as we go. So it all kind of warm up together, nice and slow, so that we don't have the cracking of the jars, and let it can. So once it comes up to the 10 pounds of pressure, we'll let it go for 55 minutes, and then that'll be it. Okay, so as the other corn is processing in the canner, I am going to start doing some of my cream style corn. So I want to show you how I do that. Now this one, you do have to have hot jars and hot liquid. So we are going to end up boiling this, but since that's going to take a while, I figured I can at least get the pulp and everything ready and then kind of get it in my saucepan. And until that's pretty much done, I can kind of coordinate when that one's cooling down, starting to bring these to the boil, getting my jars in the oven to get those nice and hot, and then we're just gonna add the hot liquid to the hot jars. And then the pressure canner should be, even though we'll bring the pressure down, let it kind of cool for a little bit, that water in there will still be pretty warm. So I should be able just to kind of bring that back up and use it right away for the cream style. So I'm gonna kind of alternate the corn, regular corn, and then the cream style. So the way that I like to do it, I don't just cut the corn off the cob. I actually use a grater, the large side of a grater, and grate the corn off of the cob. And then I use the back of a butter knife to scrape the rest of the pulp and milk and put it in here. I like it that way just because the corn is a little bit finer. Occasionally what I'll do is I'll add like another, just some like larger kernels if I want to, but now I'll do that, like kind of just add that to the pot, add like the larger kernels just to the pot as I'm doing it. But I do like them just a little bit finer with the cream corn, especially with it being in a corn casserole. So what I'm going to do here, this is not, let me see here. Let me use a bigger bowl. And then I need to wash these. I haven't washed these ones yet. The kids were kind of helping with the silks earlier. It's not overly dirty. So, woo! It's definitely messy. Canning corn is not the cleanest canning project that you can do. But I like to scrape it into a measuring bowl too, so I can see how much I am. Careful, corn flying. To see how much I'm actually getting. All right, so you can see I've already kind of gotten a good amount in there. And then what we just do is we take the back of the knife, a butter knife, and we just scrape. You want to scrape any of that extra pulp and that milk and get that kind of down into the mixture. And then what we do is we add, I think it's a cup or a cup and a quarter of water to for every 2 cups of pulp and mixture that we have. So we'll just kind of measure it as we go. Okay, I have a little over 6 cups here. I am actually going to go ahead and just scrape the kernels off of these last 4 ears of corn, and then scrape the pulp in there as well. So I've just been kind of grating it and scraping it to this point in time. So I'm just gonna add a couple bigger pieces of corn to the mixture. And then I think that that should be pretty good to give me a good 6 pints, because I'll have 8 cups. This is an 8-cup bowl. I'll have 8 cups, and then we're gonna be adding a little over 4, almost 5 cups of water, I believe, to this. So that should yield us a good 6 pints, if not a little bit more. So I'm just gonna kind of finish off with the kernels, just getting some nice whole kernels in there as well. All right. So I'm just gonna kind of get those kernels off like I would the regular corn. And then we'll scrape them. So if you could just use this method where you get the kernels off and scrape the pulp. I just don't feel like, if you're really, you have to be careful not to go all the way down to the bottom of the kernel at that point in time. Otherwise you just don't get as much pulp. So that's why I like the grating it method. I'll try not to go as far down on this one. just go. You can see that you just don't get, you still have to kind of scrape it off a lot more. It's a little bit more difficult, if you ask me, after you've cut it as opposed to just grating it off. So it's a lot more work to grate it, but I feel like it yields a lot more of that pulp and milk to make it the actual cream style corn. All right, so I'm just gonna finish off with the last two kernels, or the last two cobs, and it sounds like our pressure is actually starting to get up in our pressure canner now, so that's good. We've gotten everything nice and warm into temperature, so that's a good sign there. Now, like I've talked about, I'm doing the raw pack method for canning the corn, just the whole kernels. And I'm just keeping everything at a cool temperature and bringing it up together. If you're not comfortable with that, you easily could just take your kernels. You could still do the raw pack method where you don't have to cook the kernels, right? But what you would do is you would have your jars nice and hot. You would get some water on the stove, kind of bring that up to a simmer, bring it up to a boil, and then drop it down to a simmer. And then you can take your hot jars out, or make sure that your pressure canner, the 2 inches of water in the bottom of the pressure canner, is warm and simmering as well. And then just take your jars out of the oven, fill them with the raw corn, not cooked, fill that with the hot water, and then put the hot jars and hot water into your warm pressure canner. It's just like you typically would anything else. I typically use that method for pretty much everything. For the corn, just because it's such a long process of, getting it off the cob and preparing it, I tend to like just keeping it cold. I don't know. It's just always worked better for me with that method. But obviously, like I said, the cream style corn is definitely different. You have to have everything warm for that. But since we've already gotten corn processing in the canner, I'm already bringing that up to a nice warm simmer. And then we can do that same thing as I am making a mess. I know this is not a clean canning process here. All right, so I have a little bit over 8 cups of corn. I'm going to go ahead and put it in my sauce, my pot here. And then we're gonna add the water. So we're probably gonna get more than 6 pints. That's my guess. All right, and we need 1 1/4 cups of water per 2 cups of corn that we had. So I had a little over 8 cups. So I'm just gonna add probably 5 1/4 cups of water here, 5 1/2 cups of water, and that should be pretty good. All right, now you could also add salt to this, like a 1/2 teaspoon salt per 2 cups of corn that you have. I'm choosing not to. I could have also added salt to the whole kernels as well. I don't tend to like to add a lot of salt to things. I like just to have the natural flavor, and then while I'm cooking, that's where I end up adding extra spices and salt. So, all right. I'm gonna show you what we have here. We just have a mixture of water and corn and pulp and milk. All right, so you can see that nice mixture there. If I stir it, you can see all that beautiful corn that's grated. A couple chunkier corn from just cutting it off as well. So nice texture there. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is the pressure canner is still kind of coming up to temperature, so I have quite a bit of time, right? So once that comes to pressure, then I still have 55 minutes for it to cook. So I have plenty of time just to kind of sit and wait it out. I do have more corn to cut the kernels off in order to can the rest of that, but I'm just gonna kind of wait. At least that's done and ready, and I can just go do other things and get other things done in the meantime of just kind of waiting this time out. So that's what I'm going to do, and I will see you back here when I am ready to get the cans out of the canner and start some of warming up and boiling my cream corn. We are at our 55 minutes for the pressure canner, so I am going to shut it off. It's going to take a while for that pressure to come down and for it to be cool enough for me to actually open it. So I'm just going to let that go. And since that is going, I am now going to start warming up my cream style corn. All right, so I'm just going to turn it on, and I'm just going to keep it at low for right now until this is about done. Then I can bring it to a boil, let it boil for 3 minutes, and then we'll shut it off. But I just want to slowly kind of start bringing it up to that temperature. In the meantime, I also am going to put my jars, the jars are in the oven. I'm going to turn it on 200 degrees so that those get nice and hot. So I have the hot jars, we'll have the hot liquid, and then the pressure canner will still be pretty warm, that I can just use that hot warm water in there in order to start the process. Now for the cream style corn, we do have to pressure cook it for 1 hour and 25 minutes for the pint jars. So it is a little bit longer of a process, but at least everything will be nice and hot and ready to go. So we are doing a lot of corn today. We're getting all of it done and ready. I also had gotten the rest of the pints of just the regular corn. I have another 8 pints of that. So 3.5 dozen corn have made 16 pints of whole kernels, and we'll see how many pints of the cream style. My guess is between 6 to 8 pints of that. So it's pretty good. Great to have that stuff on the shelf. And then we did put 18 ears in the freezer today. So it's a good day. Let's get this kind of going, and we'll catch up at the end of warming everything up and getting that into the pressure canner as well. We are almost done. I have taken the top off of this after it came down to 0. My corn is up to a boil, so as I'm removing this, I'm just going to kind of let this come up to a boil, or keep boiling for a couple minutes. And then I'm also going to take the jars out of the oven. That way that's ready to go, and we can kind of finish canning and put them back into the pressure canner and let it go again. Look at that beautiful canned corn. Okay, and then I'm just gonna put the warmer on here. Oh boy, Matthew, can you please? Hey, you're okay. I'm just gonna put it on low just to kind of make sure that the temperature stays hot like it is. Okay, so we have our corn nice and hot, our jars nice and hot, our pressure canner's going. Let's fill these up. See how many we get. Leaving 1 inch of headspace. And it's the same canning process as with everything, right? So we're going to fill the jars, we're gonna debubble, wipe the rims, put the lids and the bands on, and then put them in the pressure canner. Put them in the pressure canner for 1 hour and 25 minutes for the pint jars. So that's kind of how we do it here with the cream style corn. Other than that, you have seen all 3 methods that I've used today to can this wonderful corn so that we have it all year round. Like I said, I actually might go back and get more of the corn to put in the freezer. Careful, that's really, really hot, Andrew. Get more of the corn to put in the freezer because it'd be nice to have that on hand too. So that is it. I'm just gonna go ahead and finish off here. There's nothing else that you need to see that you haven't seen before with the canning process. So let me know what you think. What is your favorite method, and what is your favorite way to preserve corn? And have you tried freezing it with the husk on? Did it work for you? Because it is the easiest and quickest way to have fresh corn. And what about the raw pack method with everything being cold? As you could see, all of my jars came out great. So as long as you're starting it all at the same temperature and slowly bringing it up to temperature together, nothing breaks. So for me, it's super easy to do that when I'm doing a big batch. I wish I would have had that second rack, because I would have been able to do both batches of corn at the same time and I'd be done with that. But since I don't, I do have to do that again later tonight after everything cools down again. So that is it for now. I will see you next time as we are canning, preserving for the rest of the year, giving you garden updates and home updates on our homestead, and I hope to see you soon.